Your 3D takes us in. It
Yeah.
doesn't throw things at us like
Yeah.
House of Wax.
Yeah, well, part of that is just stylistic, kind of how you direct the movie in a way. If the filmmaker is always bouncing a tennis ball off your forehead throughout the whole film, you're constantly reminded that you're sitting there wearing 3D glasses.
Right.
I want you to forget you're wearing glasses. I want you to go on this journey into this world. So the way we shot the 3D, we did it to kind of draw you through the screen into that world. Forget that there's a screen there at all.
How long did it take to make?
About 4.5 years.
Why?
First 2 years was R&D, developing the technology and creating the world, designing everything, drawing it, painting it, and then the 2.5 years of production.
Was there ever a time during production where people were saying, boy, this ain't going to make it? The costs are going to be too high?
Look, I mean, I had to keep from putting a pistol in my mouth about 20 times during the making of this film. And it really, there were times when we really thought we were off course, and we found out later that we weren't in as bad shape as we thought. But, that's the nature of an experimental project. It was like the Lewis and Clark expedition. They kind of had a general idea where they were going, but there's no way you could have predicted all the little twists and turns in the river along the way.
How'd you come up with the name?
I don't know. When I wrote it in '95, it just popped into my head that here you've got people projecting their consciousness into a fleshly body, a biological body, and that's what the Sanskrit word means: the taking of flesh, the incarnation of a divine being in the case of the Hindu religion. And although our characters aren't divine beings, obviously, the idea that it's actually a fleshly incarnation.
AOL wing. 用彈一滴靠，守住踢石啦。
James Cameron remains with us. As you notice, we're all standing now because we're in front of the video wall. We have this strange-looking apparatus here, too. With us is Richie Bainham, who was the animation director of Avatar, and Vince Pace, the stereographer of Avatar. He collaborated with James Cameron in developing this fusion camera system for use in shooting feature films in stereoscopic 3D. But we're going to concentrate for the moment at the wall. What are we looking at, and would you give us, fellas, a sense of how these images were created?
Well, this is a live-action shot, and this would have been shot with this camera right here. In fact, this was probably a handheld shot where I would have had this camera right on my shoulders, and it's
Right. What part did Vince play in this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I worked with Jim to develop the camera about 10 years ago, and he wanted to build a system that could do all forms of 3D so it could teach us what worked and what didn't work, and then you see the results when we use it on Avatar.
There was only one of these cameras?
We had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
A bunch of them. All made by Sony?
Yeah, Sony does the core technology, and then Vince's team created the stereoscopic rig, which allowed us to shoot 3D.
And what was your role, Rich?
The rubber meeting the road. We had to make it integrate both the live action and CG element, plus the virtual camera, which is a slightly different camera rig than this. It's a fully virtual CG camera that we shoot inside a volume to provide Jim with the directorial tools that he needs to get this done.
Where in Ireland did you find him?
Richie's a very famous animator. He worked on the Lord of the Rings films and helped create the Gollum character, and because of his experience in doing facial reality in CG, we invited him to be part of Avatar.
And where did you find Vince?
Vince and I go way back.
Back to the days of the abyss. I used to specialize in underwater, Larry.
Sigourney Weaver's in Paris. Your character, by the way, in this film is human, but also a Na'vi avatar. What was your reaction the first time you saw yourself blue-skinned and alien-looking? How did you feel when you saw that?
I realized I've never been tall enough. 10 feet is really the right size. But I think it's a beautiful blue, and it's fascinating to see your human self transformed into this other being. I'm not quite used to it yet because my avatar looks a lot like me, and I haven't quite gotten used to that yet. It still amazes me, really.
Are you surprised at its success?
You know, I have to say you can never underestimate Jim Cameron. But also when I read the script, which was in 2006, I thought it was the most ambitious script I'd ever read. It totally took me to another world, which I think moviegoers adore. And the story was such a classic story of this young man who finds a new life, finds something to fight for. Several of us have double lives. You know, we have our human lives, and then we have our lives on Pandora as our avatars. So there were so many fantastic ingredients in the story that I really thought it would be tremendously successful, especially in the hands of Jim Cameron.
We've got another look, as I said, in the making of this film, a scene involving her, Sam Worthington's character Jake, and their Na'vi avatars on Pandora. Watch.
So you just figured you'd come out here to the most hostile environment known to man, with no training of any kind, and see how it went? What was going through your head?
What about this one? Run, don't run.
Run! Definitely run!